Yeah, this is our first group discussion. It's going to talk about AI and the human angle, especially what the UX challenges that we see right now are, or who is even using these agents and to what challenges. I'll kick it off by asking what is the most successful application of AI that you've seen so far?
Just ChatGPT. I think like even though there are so many AI tools and startups out there, like whenever I ask people around me, is there an AI tool you use daily, like repetitively all the time? The only thing I get is ChatGPT. Like I haven't seen anything else that like people play around with it, you try it, but then they don't stick. So and then the use cases are all very similar. It's like writing emails, correcting, like doing research on stuff. So I think it's so-called the boring stuff that people already like is pretty predictable. Yeah.
So I actually think that you're totally correct on like the general adoption of AI being the chat GPT. Actually, if you go outside of the AI bubble, regular people are not even using chat GPT. Why? Because they try it, they fail at it, and they're like, oh, this is stupid, and they stop using it. But it's us who are like, prompt engineers already. We know how to talk with it, so it provides some value. But I think we're actually stumbling upon more and more use cases that deal with the information overload. We're switching from an era where search engines were enough. There was abundance of content and we needed search engines to find certain things. But now we're in this kind of like insane information era where there's so much content that you don't even know what to look for. You're overwhelmed, and we're starting to see tools that are solving for that. So, at our community, we actually have the researcher agent that does daily digest of new AI papers for us because it's impossible to read that all. 200 new AI papers per day, you can't even skim through that. It's insane. The other use cases that I actually use daily is the meeting type of summarization, action items, and transcription. Super helpful and basically transforms my day to day, saves me a lot of time, and also deals with the information overload because previously I had to almost like re-listen calls to pinpoint the tasks that we voiced out. Now it works like a magic.
Yeah, personally, I've been like building some agent stuff and trying it out with users. There's this coffee shop I go to on Second Street in the city, and I know the baristas there for the last few years. So now I'm like, hey, here's this cool thing I built. And as a technology guy, I just wanted to show off the technology. But I asked it like, hey, this is an agent, much like ChatGPT, that helps you ask questions and answers questions for you in a methodical way. What is it? And the barista was like, how do I create better latte art? And for me, I think like that's the thing, which is like they can come up with the questions, they haven't seen it, but when they saw the demo, they were like super happy with it, which is like, oh, it's actually telling me what is the latte art. He had a question ready, which is like, how do you make latte art with oat milk,
Oh.
right? So like, I think it can empower people, but we're not yet there. We're still in that bubble where it's only the tech heavy people are using it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I have a really interesting use case that I find interesting that I don't use that often, but video editing. I remember being younger playing around with Windows Movie Maker, and it takes like forever to just slice a video, edit it the way that you want it to do it in a cool way that like a lot of YouTubers have it. But with AI, there are so many tools now that do just like basic video editing, and it frees up so many hours of time that I think is just really cool. So I don't really do that like for work stuff, but for the boring part of fun stuff, it's been helping out.
Boring part of fun stuff, I love it.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I'm a physician, so I don't use AI very much in my regular job because it's not integrated into my workflow, and I'm not able to access ChatGPT or AI tools when I'm on site because of regulatory issues. So I think that's a large population that isn't integrating it into the daily workflow. But I personally have been trying hard to integrate it into the other pieces of my life, into my personal life, and there's just my use cases are not very different than what you've already mentioned, which is, as you mentioned as well, kind of taking out the boring things that I wouldn't want to do anyway in my time off, writing letters, drafting emails, things that are not automatic to me, that and it's been easy to adopt more and more on a daily basis. So that's been really interesting.
So you mentioned like you've been using this AI in personal capacity, but you're a physician. Let's start with like on the work side. Is there any reason or what's the frustration that you face with AI and like ChatGPT or Gemini or any of these providers that's preventing you from using it at work? And again, obviously for your case, the HIPAA considerations
Right.
apply. But from a technology perspective, why is it frustrating from a UX side of things? And what is there a frustration? And then around the room, maybe you can chime in as well about the UX and frustrations around that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Certainly, I think the biggest problem is accuracy and authenticity, right? So, the most easiest adoption method in healthcare that would kind of duck around some of the HIPAA and the regulatory measures is to explain in layman's terms to non-medical folks what the medical folks are talking about, and that should be pretty easy to do. But unfortunately, there's an accuracy piece to it that still requires me to make sure that what I'm trying to say is what is being said, and so there's a little bit of that. And then alternatively, there's literally no way to do it. So in order for me to convey to a patient what I'm trying to say in layman terms, I would have to pull up ChatGPT on my phone. There's no access point to use any tools right now because it's not integrated with the existing infrastructure. So, and I am not allowed to use my personal device. So there's just, it's not as intuitive because we do not use personal devices in the workplace, and it's not integrated. So I think that's probably the biggest barrier and frustration to me.
Was there a time when you came back home and you were like, I wish I had said that and asked ChatGPT, how could I have phrased it better?
Right, and there are literally times when I do pull up my personal device just to interact because I'm talking to somebody that is hard of hearing, hard of seeing, is not able to comprehend, massively complex, multi-step things that you're trying to convey. And ChatGPT does a really great job trying to succinctly put that together in a way that is easy to deliver to an 80-year-old that may or may not know what I'm talking about when I say ChatGPT. So I think that piece is really, really rewarding, but I wish it was, I think the next step would be to have it just be more integrated into the workflow.
Yeah, in terms of the challenges, I think it goes back to the actual, context. And the context is so diverse for human interactions and human tasks that it's impossible to reduce it to just question answer. Because most often our things are not, simple question answer things, especially the real life situations. I've been going deep into like agent research, what agentic workflows could mean, all to the point of reading like philosophy and like Milgram's theory on what agency actually is. And my conclusion is that until we give a proper definition of the agent and what those agentic workflows are, we won't be able to solve for that because it goes back to the context. And we don't necessarily, have an actual definition what we're trying to use AI for. Because one time it's, to explain something to the patient, and that may be a question answer, but then the context matters. You almost have to front load all of that, heavy explanation that explains, hey, I'm a physician, hey, I work with this, hey, this is a patient, and it almost renders it unusable because every time I have to do something complex, I spend, a lot of time front loading that context that I can imagine should be already there. So that goes back to the actual issue of the contextual user experience. I think we haven't solved for that yet, and that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, So my job is a marketer, and I create a lot of assets and content for the company, say like pitch decks, videos, blogs, etc. And my challenge with AI is, I think a lot of the AI is too ambitious. It tries to do too much. So, for example, there are all these like AI PowerPoint tools, and they promise to generate a PowerPoint with just like one sentence of prompt, but that's never usable in a marketing context because when you are making a pitch deck for, say, a company, you need it to be on brand, right? You need it to be your like following your color, your logo, your branding guidelines. And then in that context, Midjourney is useless. These AI slides tools are useless because like these are just way too far off from like what we need when you're in a business setting and you're developing something for a client. So I think instead of trying to go from 0 to 100, like from a text prompt to a PowerPoint, maybe what's better is if I feed something I already made, but it's not that pretty, and then it just improves it automatically into the formatting I want. So going from like 70 to 90%. That might be a lot more practical. Rather, like I think a lot of the AI tools right now are just very showy and they're very cool. They look very like they have a very cool demo video on X and stuff. But when you actually start using it, it's not that useful.
It's fake videos.
Yeah, also that. Yeah.
The joke there was that's fake videos, but want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I guess just to add on to that, I personally really like using AI tools for my day-to-day work. I do some growth marketing. I do some like pretty much everything like at a small startup. So I find a lot of like AI tools like ChatGPT makes my job easier. However, I do notice people on my team have a harder time like leveraging these tools because I don't think it's as accessible as it can be, like with writing the right prompt the right way and like really like messing around with it, knowing like know what to put in to get what you want out of it. So I think that that could be a big area of improvement, just making everything more intuitive for the average user.
Yeah, personally, I use AI to write a lot of the Luma page of the events that I do. Almost all of it is AI generated.
That's why it's so long.
That is why it is so long. That is true. But it's also like, after a certain point, I start questioning whether it's me, right? And so, we have these images that are generated by AI. We have these words that are generated by AI. And everybody is consuming content. And let's amplify the content that you see on all of your platforms by 10x because everything is automated. And where's the missing human angle? So, like, for me, I think the challenge is more how do I identify or differentiate the AI from the human, and almost like I want to talk to the real person. And sure, they can use AI to simplify their lives, but I really want to have the human's connection and figure out what they're like on a human level doing and talking about, and not reading content that's generated by AI. Personally, that's my challenge. Any last thoughts?
I think I think we should have more of these type of user experience discussions because there's not enough of that. Even by the amount of participants there and here, like there obviously the technical people don't really think enough about it, but that's where the value is being created on the interface level. So yeah, we should do more of this.
I love it. Yeah, I think that's one of those reasons for starting this community, talking not just about the technology, but about the human angle and societal angle, like you guys presented, but also at the same time, like making sure we are solving the real problems of user experience and gaps. I guess personally, I think there's a huge challenge of like missing identity in LLMs because like if everybody was to use LLMs, how would I differentiate Rahul from somebody else he works with who's also using LLM? So that's my personal kind of frustration with it, which is how do we add that unique value?
I actually think we're going to see more and more applications that will slowly take away that identity through replication. And you mentioned working on the voice type of things. Soon, very soon, we're going to have that multimodality where you'll see lots of voice type of applications talking to you in the voice of Arthur or Rahul, different kind of personas. They will just mimic our, identity from the voice, then video, and then you don't actually interact with human beings, which is kind of crazy. So I'm not a big fan of that dystopian future, but I clearly see that happening.
I mean, you talk about dystopian future, but the election is around the corner. And I definitely see like a lot of, I approve of this message when the person did not approve of that message, right? So there's some scary angles that we need to go with, but I want to steer away from that from a UX perspective at least.
But I think that's one of the things that's most concerning to me about AI entering healthcare, because I find that the biggest issue right now is that there's too many layers between one person and the other person. That's the entire problem with the setup of healthcare as it is today, and that there's just a lot of churn in the system because you're trying to get through multiple layers. And when I see extremely technical people trying to solve in the healthcare space, most of the solutions add additional layers of middlemen or complexity, and it doesn't bring it closer to the human, which most people, when they approach the healthcare system, are going for the human experience. They are not going there to have a faster, better, quicker solution. They're going there because they don't know what to do and they need a human to guide them through that. So I think that is not at the forefront as far as I can tell right now in coming up with solutions, which is some of my frustration and also some room for improvement.
I love it, and that kind of concludes our group discussion here, leading to autonomous humans, which is what's the human angle in all this. Thank you so much for listening.